Okay, so you are Matt Massacre,
Correct.
and you run Straight to the Core podcast, a
Indeed.
similar podcast to ours, which is Metal Inside Me. So,
Mhm.
Matt, why don't you kick us off and introduce yourself, even though I just did, and I guess tell us about your podcast. Just give us the background of it.
Right on. Well, like you said, my name's Matt Massacre. The podcast is called Straight to the Core. It's only been around, it'll be a year in September.
Hmm.
But basically, for my podcast, I kind of focus on the underground. It's not genre specific. I just recently put out a compilation album last week.
Hmm.
It's 21 bands from 6 different countries and multiple different genres.
Hmm.
It's out for free on Bandcamp. But basically, what I do every week is I'll get a hold of bands, whoever they may be, wherever they may be from. There's really no rhyme or reason to the order of operation when it comes to the bands, but I'll feature them on the podcast. I'll play a few tracks from their album. Some bands only have singles, so I'll just play the single and review it.
Hmm.
Other bands send me like full EPs or full albums, and they just give me free reign, and I'll pick a couple tracks, 2 or 3 tracks, depending on how big it is, and then play those in the episode and give it like a on-air review kind of thing, and then
Hmm.
release it. Just giving the underground an outlet to kind of showcase, you know, because there's so much talent out there, not
Oh
enough.
yeah.
The internet age, it's so hard for bands to get their music out there. So basically, the inspiration for me is that the reason I started the podcast is because before that, I spent some time in internet radio,
Hmm.
um, which kind of led me to be more comfortable behind a microphone and enunciate better. And because
Hmm.
at heart, I'm very timid. I'm very shy.
Hmm.
I'm not very outspoken. I'm not very vocal. But being on internet radio, it really helped me figure that out.
Hmm.
And but I left that and then started the podcast, and here we are.
Wow.
Yeah. Not to bottleneck the conversation this early into the podcast, but you were talking about doing live reviews of people's music, especially in the underground, right?
Yeah.
We also have put a little bit of an emphasis on our interviews and things on talking to people that are in the underground, people that aren't well known yet. But we've been a little bit timid to review their music because, we don't want to give a negative review to a
Right.
band
Right.
that we are trying to platform. So I'm just curious how you kind of tackle that issue, right? Like, how do you handle getting a song that maybe you don't think is all that great, but you still want to promote the band?
That's a good one. Normally I'll wait and see, like, if it's a song that I think could be better produced, if better, lack of a better term.
Hmm.
um I would probably say, hey, you got like an EP coming out, you got an album coming out? And they'd be like, oh yeah, we got it coming out in like 3 or 4 months. I'm like, all right, hit me back up when you have the finished thing done,
Hmm.
because I don't want to review a rough draft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let me know when your album's ready, your EP, whatever it may be, and then hit me back up, and then we'll go from there.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to put out music that isn't 100% finished.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just all depends on the genre too. Like, I've had some black metal bands on the podcast, and with black metal, sometimes you get that high or that lo-fi recording where it just sounds like somebody's recording in a metal garbage can. But I mean, it's just the genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So with that stuff, it's just like, all right, yeah, let's fucking do it. But
Yeah.
um, can I cuss? I
Oh,
just let
yeah,
that
of
one
Yes,
slip. Okay, cool.
absolutely.
All right, because I just let that slip. Like, wait a minute.
No, you're good.
Yeah, but I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I have random bands hit me up all the time via email or
Mhm.
Instagram or something. Like I said, it's not genre specific, so I guess it all depends on the genre,
Mhm.
But you just gotta be honest.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all,
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about this radio internet show you were on before? Was it did it have something to do with metal?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
It was the show that I was on was part of a station. It's called Adrenaline 101 Radio.
Mhm.
It had multiple different shows on the station, and
Mhm.
with the station itself, they played for licensing, stream
Mhm.
licensing and stuff.
Mhm.
So we played a lot of mainstream metal
Mhm.
because we had the ability to.
Yeah.
The only thing was in the licensing or whatever, it had to be live. Like, you had to do it live.
Mhm.
So you couldn't be pre-recorded. You couldn't, save it and show somebody. So the biggest issue I had with that, because it wasn't my show, I was a part of somebody else's show.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I was like a co-host or whatever. And I try to do the kind of the similar things that I'm doing now with the podcast on that radio show. But the biggest issue is a lot of the bands are like, "Hey, you got any examples? Like, can I listen to something?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, if you tune in at this time on this day, yeah, but otherwise, I have nothing recorded. I can't do anything, you know."
Yeah.
So it was really hard to gauge interest from the underground because they really had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to listen to unless they listened to live.
Yeah.
But the reason I left all that is because at the time, I wasn't really where I wanted to be in life.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of took a selfish approach to life and kind of stepped away. You know, it was
Mm-hmm.
an amicable split. It wasn't like an evil split. Like,
Yeah.
and then once I got my ducks in a row, I wanted to get back behind the mic again. But at that time, didn't have as much free time as I used to. So I was like, "Fuck, what do I do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Why don't you start a podcast?" I mean, I have all the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I have somewhat knowledge. I'm more open behind a microphone. Screw it. Let's see what happens. So I started it, and here we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, besides the radio show you were on before, what exactly was your key inspiration to start this style of podcast?
Kind of just what I said earlier about just I tried doing this
Mm-hmm.
on the radio show, but it just wasn't as possible as it could have been due to the licensing restraints and only being live, and people couldn't like, because once a podcast episode it's out and you can listen to it anytime you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but once the radio show episode aired and stopped for those 2 hours, whatever time slot it was, that's the only airing ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we couldn't record it. In order for the licensing to be valid for the, you know, to cover all the copyrights and all that nonsense, we couldn't record anything. So for me, it's like I had a laundry list of bands and musicians that wanted to be a part of that radio show, and so I kind of went back on some of the old contacts that I had. Like, hey, you know, you remember me? You know, I was part of this
Mm-hmm.
show. I'm starting a new thing. It's a podcast. I can record stuff now, and that's kind of how I got the ball rolling with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, where does your passion for the underground come from? I mean, obviously, we cover a lot of smaller bands too, but I'm curious if you have like a particular love for the underground, or if you're just sort of working your way up the ladder.
Yeah. I mean, the radio show I was on, I kind of concentrated on local music on a local level. And I'm from Rockford, Illinois, and not so much recently because of the madness of 2020. There hasn't been anything live in months,
Mm-hmm.
but out here, the local metal scene is pretty eclectic. It's many different genres, so much talent in this town. And I've been supporting local music in my town since I was 15. You know, and that was almost 15 years ago. Then that's kind of where it stems from, just the love of local music and how underground that was to me here. I kind of wanted to take the love I had for just the musicians in my area and knowing full well, there's the same kind of community in other areas of the country or the world. And I kind of wanted to spread the love a little bit to those areas of the country to kind of
Mm-hmm.
concentrate on those local scenes to give them an outlet, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry. Were you done?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you have kind of a key inspiration. I know I listened to some of your episodes, and you know, you said you listen to a lot of podcasts. You were involved in a radio show. Do you kind of have like a key inspiration for your style behind the microphone when you do your interviews with these bands? Anything like that?
No, I kind of try to add my own flavor to it. You know, I kind of when I listen to other podcasters, I'll kind of take notes about how, you know, I'll listen to an interview. I'm like, oh, that's a good point to make. That's a good question to ask. You know, that's a good way to get around to, you know, I don't know how to put it. It's just it's a melting pot of just different things that I've listened to or read up on about ways to initiate a good interview.
Yeah.
And, I kind of just wing it, I guess. Just make it my own. You know,
we have definitely taken that approach quite a few times too.
Right. Yeah, it works. It works.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've existed mostly in the audio podcasting space for a while now. You'd say that's accurate?
Yeah, majority of it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So how do you approach marketing in that world? Because I know that from our perspective, what we ended up doing was we just went straight for YouTube because we kind of understood how YouTube worked. So how does marketing work just in the podcasting world?
It's really easy to get distribution. There's many different outlets you could use for audio distribution, but I use Anchor.fm.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's a free account. You make a free account. And Anchor has working relationships with some of the major podcast outlets,
Mm-hmm.
like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. I want to say iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and a few more underground podcast
Mm-hmm.
apps. But once you click upload, Anchor will distribute it to all those outlets, and then you get individual URLs for your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did Metal Inside Me, there'll be a Google Podcast link, Apple Podcast link, so on and so forth. So basically, what I do is I usually push Spotify the most, because that seems to be the more popular outlet, more so than Apple or Google.
Yeah.
So I just try to promote the hell out of it. Just post the links everywhere I can. If I see I'm in a lot of groups on Facebook.
Mm.
So if I see anybody got any podcasts, anybody do reviews out there, anybody want anything that could trigger my brain to think, oh, hey, let's post a link to the podcast on this. I'll just quickly find the Spotify link. Boom, here you go. Check this out. Let me know what you think.
Yeah.
And then 9 times out of 10, the band will message me, hey, we'd really love to be a part of this. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because one of the issues we found early on is all of these podcasting apps, Apple Podcast, Spotify, they don't, the app itself doesn't promote suggested like podcasts to listen to a lot of the times. That was the beauty of YouTube, which is someone's watching something somewhat similar and then your stuff just gets thrown at them.
Right, and they're recommended or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely a slow process to kind of build up
Mm-hmm.
to audio format because I'm just using my webcam on my laptop. I don't have anything, high end or anything. And then I didn't think about it because I started doing YouTube interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I only have a couple up on our YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, oh, hey, I'll go get a nice webcam. Not thinking it's the middle of a pandemic and the only way people can communicate is via webcam. So all the webcams are gone. I'm like, fuck.
Oh shoot, dude! I didn't even think about that. I've been thinking about buying one.
Yeah, so I go to Walmart or Target or whatever. Hey, let's check out the webcam. It's nothing.
Oh,
but so I'm like, all right, I guess laptop webcam it is. So here we are.
Yeah. So how has the operation been running amid a pandemic and the world being a howling nightmare?
For me myself, I took a couple months off, to be honest with you. So from like April to June, I didn't release anything, and mostly because life kind of took a turn too as well. So I couldn't dedicate as much time as I was used to dedicating to the podcast. I didn't want to half-ass an episode. Yeah. So I didn't want to show any disrespect to the bands and put 50% of the effort that I normally would, because then they wouldn't get the full experience that they deserve. So I'm like, all right, put a pin in it. Let's get my ducks in a row again and go from there. But other than that, I mean, after the fact, I just feel bad for the bands. I feel so bad for these bands, especially these younger bands. That there was a band I had on the podcast from Italy called Spasticus. And when I was talking to the vocalist, they just started out. They just released an EP and everything, and before they could play their first show, Italy shut down.
Oh.
And I'm like, dude, that sucks. Like they've been practicing and amped up for it, and we're gonna, got this EP, playing our first show, pandemic. I'm like, fuck, dude, that sucks. But luckily they've been able to get back together and practice again. But yeah, just band like that's just an example. But all these bands out there that are starting out, that are young and hungry and want to, write music that they love, and they can't. When they can write it all they want, but they can't perform it for the people.
Yeah.
And that just feels so bad for them more so than me.
Yeah, man. And that's absolutely brutal because, something I don't think a lot of people think about is that the live show is also like the main venue for merch distribution for
Right.
smaller bands.
Right.
And I mean, your merch is what keeps you alive.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it really is damaging. And I don't know if a lot of people have realized that because, and this is a good thing, but we've been getting a lot of really good metal music at large, like released in studio recordings. But yeah, it's been hell for smaller bands.
It's smart, right?
Yeah, that's very true. So how has the podcast gone? I mean, you've done it for a full year. Have you found a decent amount of success you're building on?
I mean, yeah, for the most part. I mean, nothing, extravagant kind of
Yeah.
that, but the fact that I released that I mentioned earlier, the compilation that I released through the podcast, I mean, that in and of itself was something I never thought would be possible in under a year. But to have 21 different bands from 6 different countries, multiple different genres say, hey man, let me put a track on your compilation. Okay.
Yeah.
To have all that support from all these different musicians from all over the world, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That is really cool.
So that's really, really humbling for sure.
But yeah. So where do you want to take the channel? Sorry, not channel. We've been on YouTube too long.
Right.
Where do you want to take the podcast? What are your goals?
I mean, just grow. My only goal is to grow, not for me, but grow for the bands. Because the bigger audience I have that listens to the podcast, the more ears are going to listen to that music. I just do this as a hobby for the love of the music. I'm not in it to make any money. If I get a couple sponsors along the way, by all means.
Yeah.
Then I can afford better equipment or all that other stuff. But my whole goal is just the music. Like I'm not in it for fame or recognition. I'm just here to have these musicians have an ability to showcase their music, especially the underground. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Connor and I can definitely agree that, one of the best elements of what we've been doing is really just getting immersed into the music world, to really have our lives be saturated by all these people who just really care about making our favorite kind of music. So we're right there with you in terms of just enjoying the experience and wanting to be there for the bands.
Yeah, very true. Has there been a single moment that stands out to you in your podcast over the last year that like you're just like, damn, that was awesome?
A couple actually. It's happened twice now. There's a band called Eon's Abyss, and they're from Australia. One of the very first bands I had on the podcast, and as a thank you, they sent me. There's only 50 of these. They only made 50 of them, but they sent me for free their album, the physical album.
Yeah.
From Australia. And there's, like I said, there's only 50 of them, and it's kind of sitting. I don't know if you can see it over here. That thing right there. I got it like it's on someone's pedestal because it means so much.
Yeah.
And so that just now when I got the package, it's got all the Australian, mail stamps on it and everything else. And then a band called Suffer UK from the UK, they did the same thing recently. As a thank you for having them on the compilation, they sent me their whole album.
Dang, dude.
For free. So like those two moments, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And so it's really cool. And then I had another band called Anti-King. They're from Southern California. They sent me a T-shirt as a thank you. I'm like, just stop sending me stuff. Like I don't do it for, I don't do it for the gear. I just do it because I enjoy it. But it's very humbling and it's super cool. Like super cool experience.
That is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you mostly found that the folks that you talk to turn out to be really interesting, amicable people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Some of the greatest dudes and women. I've had a couple bands that were female fronted on the pod that I featured on the podcast, and 9 times out of 10, if it's a female fronted band, the woman's usually the go-to member. So one of them is called Ian Will. The Tex Avery Syndrome was another one, and oh god, Sepsis. Yeah, that sounds right. It's only 3 I've had, but I mean, just the people are great. They're so like I'm the one that's humbled by just them giving me because I can't do it without the bands. I mean, none of us can do it without the bands.
Yeah.
These podcasts, my podcast, your podcast, couldn't exist without the music.
Yeah.
So I always tell them, thanks for allowing me to do it because I literally couldn't do it without you. And then they turn around and get more humble than I am, and it's like it's a battle who can be more humble. And it's like,
Yeah.
just
True.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's absolutely been the case with us as well. That question by no means was like a dog whistle that we've been hanging out with a bunch of jackasses. Everybody's been fantastic. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
it's
Um,
true.
yeah.
Okay, so next question is I'm stealing one of your questions from the podcast because you didn't answer your own question when you asked this to this band that you interviewed, which is if you can make a super group,
Okay.
yes, that question. Name
Okay.
the bassist, vocalist, drummer, guitar. You can have two guitarists and the name of the band. What would it be
Name
called?
of the band, super
Yeah.
group. Oh man. All right, on drums, I'd probably have to have Tim Young.
Mm,
He's a monster. He played on Divine Heresy's first album.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's Dino Cesaro's from Fear Factory. It's a side project from like 2009 or something, 2008.
Mhm.
He's just a beast on drums. Bass, man. Bass, I have to go with Fieldy on bass, I think. And then guitars, Dimebag, of course.
Yeah.
And
Of
other
course.
guitar player, man. Shoot. Now that I'm on, I know these guys felt when I asked them their question.
Yeah.
Oh man, other guitar player. I'd probably have John Gallagher from Dying Fetus doing
Mhm.
hybrid duty with guitars and vocals because that's my favorite death metal band and I love his growls.
Mhm.
So I think I'd do a 4-piece with John Gallagher on guitar and vocals.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Name of the band?
Name of the band. Oh man. Massacre Made. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, the self plug in the band name. That's
Right.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, funny story about the name. Before I get into that, when I joined the radio show, the main host of the show, John, he had a post on Facebook like Matt needs a nickname,
Mhm.
and that's how I got it. It was somebody said Matt Massacre. I'm like, oh, okay, cool,
There you go.
legit, and I just
Solid.
carried it over to the podcast.
Nice.
You know,
Chris, we should take some notes. We need some metal names to go with our first name. Yeah.
I'm honestly a little bit afraid of if I gave that power to other people, they're gonna sign
Right.
me.
right.
True.
Yeah.
Chris, are you going, or do I got the next one?
Sure, I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
So this is just like a really broad, common question, man. But what are like some of your all-time favorite bands? There's no specific number of bands you have to give us. But
Oh man, like all time, Slipknot, just
Yeah.
because, like growing up, those albums got me through some shit. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like religiously every day after middle school. On the school bus home, because this was back when you had the Walkmans and shit, and you had the CD booklets in your backpack. I would listen to Iowa front to back on the way home from school, and then the minute I got home, we only had one DVD player in the house, and that was in the living room. And my mom and stepdad were at work, so I had the whole house to myself.
Yeah.
So I would listen to Iowa front to back, and then I would come home and watch Disaster Pieces every day for a month.
Oh
Like-
my gosh. Yeah.
Swear to God, every day.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
I'd go ahead.
no, go on. No, sorry. Please
No.
continue.
And then after that, I would go and play the self-titled album while I'm playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 on PS2. So,
Yes.
I don't know. It's an all-time favorite just because, nostalgia and just the memories
Mhm.
behind the music.
Mm.
And then, so I grew up a new metal kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm wearing a fucking corn shirt for Christ's
Yep.
sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in good company here, man. Slipknot is the band that got Connor into metal in general. So.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, the band that got me to metal would probably have to be White Zombie, Rob Zombie for me.
Oh.
That was definitely because, when I was growing up, my cousin Kelly, she was into heavy music, and I was like 7 or 8. And the apartment complexes we lived in, I lived in one, and then her and my uncle lived in the one next door. So I would walk over to the apartment complex all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and my uncle had a huge Star Wars book collection, so I'd use him as my personal library and walk over there, get another book, and then
Yeah.
and then you probably have to look it up. But Hellbilly Deluxe, Rob Zombie's first solo album,
Mm-hmm.
the disc art, it's a black disc with white zombie skulls all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And that disc was sitting face up on her dresser, and I was just mesmerized by it. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm scared, but I want to know what's on this. So I asked him, like, hey, can I borrow this? She's like, yeah, man, go ahead. So I took it home and played it in, and Super Beast played, and the rest is history.
Dang.
Yep.
Yeah.
man, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share a little story. I remember I was in middle school and I had this crush on this girl, and she just wanted me to leave her alone. And when you're in middle school and you're into metal, you kind of think that your music is scary or whatever.
Right.
And so, in order to get awkward 12-year-old me to go away, she showed me the Little Piece of Heaven music video from Avenged Sevenfold. And it had the opposite effect of it drove me to immediately go listen to all of the records. And of course, then I got into Slipknot and then Rise Against and all those like a little bit more mainstream bands.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how it happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I went to Ozfest in 2000, saw Pantera, didn't realize it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I was so young because I went with a buddy's friend, or a friend of mine from school. His dad, as a birthday, I think it was a birthday present or something, or getting good grades gift or something. He said, hey, I'll take you and a friend to Ozfest. Pick a friend. And he picked me.
Dang.
Yeah, and of course, back then, I didn't know any of the bands. I didn't know the music. I just knew I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in life, I found the ticket stub.
Yeah.
I was cleaning and doing something like, oh, who was on this bill? I looked up and fucking Pantera was on it. I'm like, ah, what?
Dude.
What the fuck? I wish I was old enough to like visually know what the hell I was watching at the time. But
yeah,
I could say I saw Pantera, but I really didn't see them.
Yeah.
Because I don't really remember it. But
wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting question here. Rapid fire. I'm going to name a subgenre and your favorite band from the subgenre,
Okay.
Whatever's at the top of your head. All right.
Okay. All right.
I think you already named this one, so don't say Dying Fetus. All right. Death metal.
Suffocation.
Okay. Deathcore.
Oh shit. Whitechapel.
Metalcore.
As I lay dying.
Thrash.
Ooh, Slayer.
Okay. Grunge.
Grunge. Oh, Alice in Chains.
Yeah. Hardcore.
Hardcore shit. I don't know. No, I'm drawing a blank. Oh man, I don't know. Vane.
Yeah. Black.
Black metal. Dark Funeral.
Okay. Progressive.
Progressive. Scale the Summit.
New
Slipknot.
Yeah. There we go. That's all. That's
hardcore had me going because like hardcore is like my genre of choice right now. So I had all these bands going through my head, and I'm like, shit.
Oh yeah, I feel ya. Me and Chris have been on a huge hardcore. I don't know, season of listening to music. I mean, yeah. It seems like all like that type of metal is just kind of exploding right now.
Right. It's very like prominent. It's crazy, but it's so good.
Yeah.
I know.
So it feels like ever since Knocked Loose released A Different Shade of Blue, hardcore has just become like as large as metalcore. Now, of course, that's just my subjective take on it, but all these bands, like you mentioned, Vane, and then Turnstile and Dealer, and all these other bands have just risen right up to the surface. R.I.P. Dealer, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
God.
Well, Alpha Wolf is close enough to their
Alpha
sound.
Wolf,
so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so interesting question here. What do you think it is about heavy metal that attracts you to the music?
The culture, for sure. I mean, the music, of course, but outside the box, the culture. Because, I mean, metal has a stigma of being this just evil, violent, angry form of expression, When in reality, yeah, okay, it is, but it's expression nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, metalheads gravitate towards the music as a release.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's angry lyrics and angry topics, but the musicians that are writing it are releasing that anger. And in turn, we as metalheads find something to relate to that, which is why we love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And if you meet metalheads, I mean, we're the nicest group of people you ever meet. Like, I swear to
I know.
God.
Yeah, seriously.
You know?
Yeah. Sincerely, man, like I don't think I've ever run into an asshole at a metal show, really.
No.
I think the worst experience Connor and I have ever had at a metal show was just a guy who would not stop telling us about all of the fantastic concerts he went to, and if that's the worst experience you have, it can't be that bad, man.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's also
So-
one of those things to where you could be at a store, you know, and you'll see somebody wearing like a Megadeth t-shirt and like, hey, you're cool. I like you. What's going on?
That's true.
You know what I mean? And it's like, of
Yeah.
course, it's the music is the biggest gravitation for me, but it's just the culture of it all.
Yeah, exactly the point you brought up. There's almost a sense of like camaraderie, like you're in the same club when you just see a stranger wearing a metal shirt.
Right.
You're almost like
Yeah.
comfortable around them immediately
Right.
before even speaking to them.
Right. It's like you're already friends and you don't even know their name yet.
Exactly.
You know?
It's very interesting. The metal phenomenon, I guess.
And it's one of those genres that you can listen to something from 1982 and it still kicks ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll take it a level deeper with that question. What do you think it is about metal and metal culture that seems to that seems to infest people's identities so thoroughly? You know, like once you become a metalhead, it becomes like a stringently attached part of you.
Right. Yeah.
And I can't really speak for people who are into other kinds of music, but I certainly don't witness that in the same way that I witness it with people in our community. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I feel like with metal, it's more than just music. You know, kind of piggyback on what I said before. It's you don't see people that listen to top 40, you know, have 14 Taylor Swift shirts. You know, they have one from the concert they went to 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, they spent $45 on. You know what I mean?
True.
You know, so I feel like with metal, it's a culture. It's not just a genre of music. It's a culture. It's more than the music.
Yeah.
Because you don't see people packing a bar, you know, 200 cap room for a rap show. I mean, sometimes you might, but I mean, every weekend.
Yeah.
Depending on the area you live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a tough question, but I mean, I see I see why you're asking it. I just don't know how to answer it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a thought that I've had that I think might support where you're going with is about it being like a very strong culture, is that the fact that we have so many friggin' subgenres.
Oh yeah, dude.
And it seems to be the reason why we have so many subgenres is that it's like once something gets just like one little bit of metal in it, it becomes metal, right?
Right.
And I think that might speak to the way in which it is an incredibly strong culture, right? Because once you add some metal to your music, you've now brought an entirely new genre of music into a pre-existing culture.
Right.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I'm absolutely right about that, but it seems to make a certain degree of sense.
Yeah, no, I mean like bands like Sleep Token, Poppy.
I was gonna say Poppy. Yep.
Yeah, like
Poppy kicks ass, dude. I'm like, no shame, dude. No shame.
Yeah, no, us either. Yeah, just like adding a little bit of metal makes all the metalheads jump on this new subgenre. And they're like, but it becomes metal even if only 10% of the music has metal influence.
Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Crazy. And then one thing my buddy's fiance pulls up a good point. She a couple weeks ago or something. She's like, "How come you guys always wear fucking camo shorts?" And I was like, well, I mean, there's extra pockets, and you can't see me from the waist down. I don't know. It's just the way
That is a good question. I don't have an answer to it.
I don't have an answer.
Because...
It's just like the uniform. I get if you're a metalhead, I guarantee you have like 3 or 4 pairs of camo shorts in your closet. Guarantee it.
Yeah. That's actually one of the first things I noticed. So me and Chris went to our first metal show together. We were roommates in college. That's how we met. And anyway, you know, that's a whole long backstory, but eventually we went to see Metallica for our first metal
Oh,
show.
it's bucket list, man. You guys got one up on me. I've never seen it. Fuck.
So yeah, amazing show.
I
And
believe it.
as we're pulling up, so like first off, going to the show, I didn't even know what moshing was. So I'm a brand new metalhead. Okay.
Right.
Didn't even know what moshing was honestly, didn't really have many metal friends. Was definitely apprehensive, still kind of thought maybe these people are scary.
Right.
We pull up and just see everybody wearing Metallica shirts and so many camo shorts. And I was just like, what am I witnessing right now?
Right.
But
Oh, no.
that concert is when I realized how nice everybody is.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. Funny story from that exact same moment when the mosh pit did open up. I just remember looking to my left, and I saw Connor just getting like sucked away in a tornado of human bodies, and the look on his face was priceless.
That's funny.
Yeah, man.
I've had one of those moments.
Where the mosh pit formed around you.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It was in Milwaukee, and it's when there was a Lamb of God show, Lamb of God and Hatebreed.
Oh.
And it was right after Randy got out. It was like the first show after the whole Czech Republic thing happened.
Shoot.
So it was the first tour. So they were angry. Fans were excited.
Oh.
It was nuts. And Hatebreed played before them. And I remember standing, my buddy Caleb was in front of me. He's this big dude.
Mm.
And it's like one of those moments like Tom Hanks in fucking Castaway. Wilson, like he's just fucking disappearing, and I'm getting sucked into this Hatebreed pit. And I'm just yelling, Caleb. And I'm just in this fucking pit. I'm like, all right, whatever, it's happening. So then I find my way out of the pit and go to the edge of the or the merch area or whatever, because that's where we made the meeting place. Like, meet by the merch if you get separated. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, dude, hilarious. I think my favorite mosh pit moment, which is one of my favorite concert moments of all time, is I was at an Issues show of all places, and I accidentally shoulder checked a guy into the floor, and when he got up, he just fully embraced me and hugged me for like 10 seconds. It was bizarre, but it was awesome.
I got a similar story. In my area, there's a speedway called the Rockford Speedway. It's not very big. It's super small. But the Rockford area back in the late 2000s used to do this annual show called Wingding. And it had like radio rock bands like Alter Bridge and Blackstone Cherry and bands like that genre, like Chevelle and Breaking Benjamin and shit like that. And it was every summer, like Memorial Day weekend, like the end of May-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last weekend in May was usually when it was every year, and it was $10. And it was like 2008, I want to say. And it was one of the last they're not doing it anymore. And my friends were on the other side of a pit, and there's multiple pits going on. It's fucking Chevelle playing, of all things. So I'm trying to tiptoe around the outside of the pit, and this big motherfucker, like 6'6", 240, decides that I'm a target and just lays me the fuck out. So I get launched in the air, and I'm laying on my back like, what just happened? And he comes up and looks at me. He's like, "You good, bro? My bad." He looks at me. He puts his hand down to pick me up, and then he like doesn't know his own strength because he lifts me with one arm, and I'm fucking flying in the air like this. And I land on my feet, and he brushes me off and slaps me in the ass. He's like, "You good, bro?" Thanks, man.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh, dude. Yeah, you gotta watch out for the crowds at those Red State Rock Band shows, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty rowdy.
Right.
True. Well, Matt, that's pretty much all we have at this point in the interview. You are open to plug whatever you want, make any announcements you want to, or ask me and Chris anything you want.
Well, as for plugs, I mean, the podcast can be found on Spotify. Pretty much everything across the board is just Straight Core Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Bandcamp, SoundCloud. The compilation I mentioned a few times, it's completely free. 21 different bands, many different genres. Just go to straightcorepod.bandcamp.com. I know Bandcamp does do download limits, so if for some reason you can't download it, it's available on SoundCloud as well. just go to soundcloud.com/straightcore pod. Same thing with Facebook. It's all Straight Core Pod, or just search for Straight to the Core. As for the episodes, I try to release them every Sunday. I don't think I'm going to do one this week because I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do two,
Yeah.
promote my episode and then try to promote this at the same time.
Yeah.
So I just said, I'll just do this week. But usually every Sunday around 5. I'd say I don't really have a time frame. It's just Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have bands from the UK and stuff that are 5-6 hours ahead of me, so I don't really put a specific time. I just release it every Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for us?
So I mean, for you guys are just primarily YouTube.
Yeah.
Video podcast, more so a video podcast than audio.
Yeah. Connor puts our stuff out somewhere in the world other than YouTube.
Right. It's on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio.
Okay.
Well, I'm on one of those websites that just throws it everywhere.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But like I said earlier, I mean, we didn't really understand, or at least I didn't understand marketing or the distribution for non-YouTube stuff, but I did understand YouTube. So the way that this came to be was I just started uploading album reviews like every day until we had like 50 subs, and then we had a really big interview that we didn't expect, and everything changed from there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we're kind of hoping as our because we're putting out other content besides podcast episodes on YouTube. We're hoping as we grow our YouTube fan base, the podcast episodes also get more views. And once we have fans, then people will actually listen just the audio version because that's obviously more convenient for a lot of people.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Very true.
So
I noticed you guys started doing React videos. I think Connor, you had your mom on for Not Grease or something.
Yes, I did. And it went surprisingly well. Well, I mean, she didn't like it, but she wasn't horrified, but I was pretty surprised.
My mom was very reluctant when I started listening to metal because I grew up on 70s, 80s hard rock. So, but when I showed her Rob Zombie for the first time, I did a 5th grade book report on him. She's like, "What the fuck? What happened to you?"
True.
But I mean, some of the music now, I made you guys seen that video of that chick, that vengeful ex-girlfriend who tried to light her boyfriend's car on fire and it blew up in her face?
No.
Well, on our Facebook page, I made a little video thing of that moment, and I put the breakdown segment for I mentioned them earlier, Suffer UK, the band. They had a really sweet breakdown segment, one of their songs. Actually, the song that I featured on the compilation, the breakdown segment, when the fire exploded in her face, it was like the snare hit before the breakdown. And I showed my mom that, and she's like, "I like the music though." I'm like,
"Oh,
okay."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you don't have any more questions, that's pretty much it. We really enjoyed talking to you,
and it was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun.
Can't wait to promote this and promote your podcast. And
if you guys want to collab on anything else, by all means, let me know. You want to?
Yeah, we definitely.
I love to do some React videos because I've been wanting to do that, but I don't know how to even start doing it. Because I'm not video knowledgeable at all, so I don't know how to do the little picture down here, the video in question, stuff like that. So I'd love to do more React stuff.
Yeah, we could definitely jump on and do a reaction together. When me and Chris are not together and we do it remotely, we just do it over Zoom and we just play the music right at the same time and watch it, and then I'll lay it over later, and then we'll just talk about it at the end.
Talk about it, yeah. Video editing, I'm kind of learning.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I just started the YouTube channel in June, so I'm just now starting with video. But yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Absolutely.
We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's it, everybody. Straight to the Core podcast. Go listen to it.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
See ya.
See ya.